The night was quiet yet uneasy. An old house stood at the edge of Crestwood, its windows shattered, its paint faded like the memory of those who once lived there. Few dared to walk near it, yet the K9 unit approached without hesitation. Thor the German shepherd halted suddenly. His sharp eyes locked on the house, his body stiff, his ears forward. He stared unblinking at the broken doorway as if something inside called to him. Officer Mark Davis tightened his grip on the leash. He trusted Thor's instincts. If the dog refused to move, it meant something waited within. Officer Mark Davis had worked many strange cases, but the old Harrington house carried an aura different from the rest. The townsfolk whispered about it for years, claiming it was cursed. Some said they heard footsteps at night, others swore they saw lights flicker inside, though no power lines had fed the house for decades. Mark did not believe in curses, yet he respected the unease locals felt. That evening a call had come from a frightened passerby who reported movement in the abandoned property. With no backup nearby, Mark and his K9 partner Thor drove to investigate. The house looked lifeless from a distance, but as they neared the front gate, Thor grew tense. His breathing slowed, his gaze fixed. The shepherd's body language said more than words. Something was inside. Mark crouched beside him, patting his shoulder. "What is it, boy?" he whispered. Thor did not glance at him. His focus never left the cracked doorway. It was not curiosity, it was conviction. He had sensed danger before, and this was the same. The K9 lifestyle had taught Mark to trust without question. Dogs could smell fear, hear whispers, and detect life in places no human could. If Thor stared at that house, it was not empty. It was waiting. The gate creaked as Mark pushed it open. Weeds scratched at his boots. Thor stepped forward with cautious precision. His tail stood straight, his head low. Every sound carried through the silence, the crunch of gravel, the rustle of dry branches, the distant call of an owl. The front porch sagged under their weight. Mark shined his flashlight through the doorway. Dust floated like snow in the beam. Broken furniture lay scattered inside. Yet Thor refused to enter. He stood firm at the threshold, eyes locked deep into the shadows. Then his ears flicked. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Mark followed his gaze toward the staircase. Though broken and half collapsed, it led to the upper floor where a faint sound echoed, a scrape of wood against wood. Mark's training urged caution. He radioed dispatch, but static hissed back. The storm clouds above had cut communication. He was alone with Thor. Slowly they moved inside. Thor sniffed the air, his steps measured. The air carried a strange metallic scent, like rust mixed with something sour. His gaze shifted from corner to corner as if following an invisible trail. Suddenly he barked loud, sharp and fierce. Mark spun his light to the far corner. For a split second he swore he saw movement. A figure ducked behind a broken wall. Adrenaline surged through him. "Police K9 unit, come out now!" Mark's voice echoed through the empty halls. Silence followed. Thor tugged hard on the leash, pulling toward the stairs. His instincts screamed pursuit. Mark hesitated only a moment before following. Each step creaked, threatening to collapse. The shepherd's growls grew deeper, guiding him closer to the unseen presence above. At the top of the stairs the hallway stretched narrow and dark. Doors lined each side, most hanging from broken hinges. Thor moved straight to the last door at the end. He stood still, staring, fixed and unrelenting. Mark gripped his flashlight tighter. "On my mark," he whispered. He pushed the door open. Inside the room, shadows stretched across peeling wallpaper. A man crouched near the window clutching a small bag. His eyes darted wild with panic. Before Mark could speak, the man drew a knife. Thor lunged with explosive force. The shepherd collided with the intruder, knocking him flat. The knife clattered across the floor. The man struggled, but Thor's teeth held firm on his arm, refusing to let go until commanded. Mark cuffed the man quickly, his pulse racing. Inside the bag he found stolen jewelry, electronics, and cash. The suspect had been using the abandoned house as a hideout. But the most chilling moment was not the arrest itself. As Mark secured the evidence, he noticed another door slightly ajar inside the same room. Thor growled low again, staring with that same intensity. Mark opened it slowly. Inside was a hidden crawlspace stacked with stolen weapons, maps, and coded notes of planned robberies. Thor had not just found a trespasser. He had uncovered the heart of a criminal operation. By the time backup arrived, rain had begun to fall. Officers searched the house, collecting weapons and securing evidence. The captured man refused to speak, but his silence mattered little. The proof was overwhelming. Thor stood beside Mark, soaked from the leaking roof, yet alert as ever. The other officers praised him, calling him the hero of the night. Mark gave a small smile, knowing this was simply what Thor did. He stared because he sensed more than any human could. Later, as they left the property, Mark glanced back at the house. Its broken windows reflected the flashing lights of patrol cars. For years it had been a source of fear for Crestwood, but now its secrets were revealed. What once was a ghost story became a crime scene brought into the light by a dog's unshakable stare. Weeks later, the townsfolk no longer whispered about the Harrington house. Children passed it without fear. Families rested easier knowing the gang behind the robberies had been broken. The abandoned house no longer belonged to shadows. Mark often remembered that night. He recalled how Thor had stood frozen, staring at the doorway before they entered. It had been more than instinct. It was a bond between man and dog. Trust had turned silence into action and danger into justice. Thor still patrolled the streets every night, his eyes sharp, his ears ready. And though the Harrington house grew quieter with time, its story lived on. People spoke not of curses but of courage, of Aik K9 who stood guard at the threshold until truth emerged. The K9 lifestyle was more than duty. It was trust, loyalty, and the fearless stare of a shepherd who never turned away.